In politics, reason may seem to play an eminently militant part, since when it can, it introduces a moral order into the chaos of conflicting customs and quarrels. Yet a moment's reflection will suffice to remind us that militancy itself is a strand in the generative order of society, an eddy in the stream, when one vital interest becomes vivid and turns against the smothering pressure of the undirected flux of events. Militancy is but the integrity of a part asserting itself and seeking to dominate the blind drift of the rest. Now such integrity in an insurgent will is itself the triumph of reason and of vital liberty in the individual or the party, girding itself for combat. So that reason enters the political arena as an aggressive demand put forward by an eager agent whose will, suddenly clarified, feels capable of achieving social domination. An Oriental sage, however, might attain perfect integrity and rationality without growing in the least militant or figuring in politics as a reformer. The itch to make war on a drifting world would have to arise in him irrationally as a heaven-sent mission or political passion. Reason by no means requires a man to set about making rational those things which are irrational by nature, as life itself is. Don Quixote was kindly and heroically mad, but he had lost his reason. A rational order of society must be imposed on it by art, by express institutions and laws, which presuppose birth, death, love, labor, war, and a perpetual fringe of madness and crime surrounding the fortified oasis of reason. And the needful agent in building and defending this fortress can never be reason itself, but some sworn band of militant enthusiasts in whom the idea of a rational society has become an obsession. The primary force in establishing a rational order of society is therefore a purely vegetative growth in the psyche that easily spreads by contagion to a group of psyches and forms a political part or philosophical sect. The germ of this political growth is not itself political, but biological and moral. It is the seedling of the life of reason, sprouting within the secret self, and spreading as it finds a psychic soil favorable, and the surrounding climate clement and sunny. Sympathy is a great help in the early stages of such moral integrations, but when the inner domination has become deep-rooted and firm, contrary blasts harden rather than bend it, and zeal in the cause grows faster than does the good work itself. This occurs, however, only in a few leaders and ardent disciples, for rationality is a secondary habit in the animal psyche. A not indispensable synthesis of functions, each capable of asserting itself separately, and apt, in rough weather, to lose all contact with its neighbors. The political power exercised in the alleged service of reason is always exercised by persons themselves fundamentally irrational, but attached in their studious meditations to some rational utopia, or to phrases become catchwords for special interest, but still suggesting the rational aspirations of some political philosopher. A rationalist party may thus arise and govern in its day, as rationalist sects arise in philosophy, probably in both cases animated by an irrational hatred of tradition in general and of religion in particular. It is not the work of such parties that I wish to study under the name of the rational order of society. Such an order would liberate all human interests, especially those that, being ideal and harmless, do not particularly trample on one another, and that even psychologically can often be pursued together through the light and enrichment of a rational mind. Whereas rationalist sects usually favor only elementary material interests and unimaginative morals, counting bread rations but not moments of sport or laughter. The militant aspect of reason in politics is therefore accidental, as are aggression enmity, and the generative order. Fishes, for instance, may have no choice but to devour one another if they are to live at all, vegetable food being absent or insufficient in their medium, and plants in the jungle may be by nature pure parasites on other plants, or may, by merely existing, rob them of the necessary space, moisture, or sunlight. This is not militancy, but only involuntary, inevitable rivalry. So the agents that diffuse the life of reason must remove, not from the world, but from their own lives and chosen surroundings, all that would destroy or subvert the rational economy. This would involve a strict and totalitarian discipline within the rational circle, as within a monastery or school or army, but without the least ambition to make all nature, all animals, or all societies rational after one's own rule. For even the most uncompromising regimen has a natural and irrational nucleus, and this nucleus differs in different races, ages, or countries. So the rational development there would differ from an equally rational development on another foundation. As to peace between different rational regimens or civilizations, it would depend on the physical possibility of their coexistence. If there was room and sustenance for all, they should rationally agree to differ. If only one could subsist at a time, underlying physical forces or economic developments, perhaps without war, but certainly without reason, would automatically decide the issue. In itself, indeed, reason is something internal to the spirit, a faculty of seeing identity, affinity, contrast, or irrelevance between essences, present together in direct intuition, though purely speculative in itself. This faculty sheds continual and revealing light on events and on the whole history and composition of the world, because the images and the calculations that reveal surrounding facts to an animal have essentially dialectical relations to one another, and these relations become patent to intuition if ever attention is directed upon them instead of distractedly following the lures, the threats, and the shocks of pressing events. Language, making recognizable sounds to mark similar accidents, tends to cast a net of grammatical relations over the flux of experience, and superposes, in this way, a partially intelligible syntax on the natural order of Genesis in the world. Mathematical science, which in itself is perfectly hypothetical and ideal, carries this application of reason to nature one step further, with brilliant practical and speculative results. These results prove the partial truth of what language and myth assume too sweepingly, that nature, though fundamentally contingent and irrational, falls readily into repetitions and analogies which render possible rational description and appreciation of what happens in some spheres and some directions. There can be shrewd divination even in psychology, in politics, in business, and in war, but all is at best imaginative presumption, which can be justified only where the objects studied are so simple in structure that the human senses can distinguish and measure their elements and movements. This is notoriously not the case in human history or politics, and when prophets profess to see dialectical necessity in the complex and confused movements of civilization, and they indulge in a forced distortion of both facts and of logic and morals. The eloquent composition of history books must indeed be inspired by a muse, because it treats dramatically the fortunes of some men, or some nation, or some art, with a dark background of destiny. Still remains dominant and dictates the moral, unless the partisan author relies on eloquence to reverse the truth. It is not therefore in scientific description of society or government or in universal history that any rational order is to be expected, but only, at best, in the exercise of government, when this is virtuously inspired, intelligently pursued. The choice of reason as a guide, instead of will, or faith, or public approval, is itself a matter of vital endowment or character in the individual. it will mark the type of morality that he advocates or actually simplifies. Reason is a standard that the barbarian heartily despises, and that has actually been seldom dominant, even in theory, much less in the practice, of politics. Intelligence has been admired and sharpened in the pursuit of irrational ends. It has seldom been allowed to criticize or dislike the ends actually pursued. And this is no scandal or paradox. The stress and vitality in man breed and employ reason as a method of concentrating natural powers in himself or discovering them in the world. But intense cultivation of reason sucks up and reorganizes all mental vistas into a speculative habit that transcends those animal and social interests which it was cultivated to serve. The chief field in which such a habit has borne rich political fruit is mechanics, where a mathematical formula posited to govern material processes is verified in them. Yet even here, the traceable rational order presupposes brute facts and arbitrary variations in them, which do not become rational or intelligible simply for being habitual. Motion and change are themselves utterly irrational. Both the fact that they occur and the fact that they seem to obey certain laws are factors in the order of generation, not in any way dictated by reason. Reason cannot rationally deny or condemn nature, or the life and will that nature breeds, and this for various reasons. First, reason itself owes its existence as a chief characteristic of the spirit to the spontaneous fertility of those material and vital powers. Secondly, even spirit manifests an emotional and poetic sensibility which is not rational. Thirdly, on its rational side, spirit transcends all censorious judgments or combative will, and thereby gives carte blanche to all logical possibilities, but without sanctioning the existence of any one of them in particular. In all sufferings and joys, spirit therefore moves in the order of generation, and not in that of reason. Constantly with this, when reason becomes by any chance, or any discipline, a dominant movement in the psyche, it tends to deflate all animal or political interests, and to deflate the passionate or playful impulses of spirit itself. It makes for omniscience, equilibrium, and peace, in a word, for nirvana. Observing or foreseeing this, the domestic and political man, while obliged incidentally to invoke reason as an instrument in his pursuits, hardly detests reason as an inspiration or a sanctuary. With this reminder that reason is properly a spiritual virtue, having its standards and rewards in itself, we may be prepared to find the rational arts that flourish in the world to be secluded, like mathematics, or festive, like music. Also, to find little confusion and tragic failure where reason attempts to clarify such a concrete and mundane subject as politics or even philosophy. For a life of reason on earth is inevitably distracted in the presence of the aesthetic qualities and logical relations between things which actually appear to the spirit. Man harnessed to affairs or intent on his own passions will not see those obvious qualities in the rational logical order, but will see rather their irrational comings and goings, or will feel only active impulses which, as signs, they arouse automatically in his body. In this, he obeys, like any other animal, the generative order of nature and of economic arts, in which the conjunction and distribution of images and minds is a vain accident and psychic waste, like after images or dreams. Nothing counts except man's physical reaction to the physical presence of particular dynamic objects. What wonder, in such circumstances, that the political man should ignore reason, or be utterly confused if he attempts to be rational. Material complications and headlong events are calling to him and threatening on every side. He must pick his perilous way among realities. Yet to conceive remember, or forecast those realities. He has only those inert ideas which past contacts have imposed on his uncertain and crowded memory. And on this he must model his probably fatuous expectations. His automatic reactions will carry him forward before he knows what reasons he will assign for them if challenged in debate. And in debate, a few trite notions and standard phrases will have to represent his vague motives, and, by mere repetition and emphasis, to vent his perhaps genuine emotions. If in a quandary he ever feels his terrible ignorance, he can look for enlightenment only in the dead dramas congealed in books, or in moral or religious precepts. There is indeed a fund of wisdom buried there, to which mankind may appeal when their living will falters. But like proverbs, such maxims, especially in politics or religion, are contradictory, local, and casual. You must first know your name before you can choose a precept or wish to justify it.